So, family, this story comes from Indiana. A school resource officer with a criminal history before he became a school resource officer has been fired because of offensive and racial comments. And so, Officer Paul Tutsey finds himself out of a job, and he was terminated on March the 1st because of a complaint from a student. And I'm going to tell you about this officer. Back in the 90s, he was off duty and he got into a brawl with some civilians, and it was said then that he shouted some things that were quite interesting that seems to match what the student said. But there's some other things about this guy that you gotta know, so let's get deeper into this story. And we learned that despite his firing, Paul Tutsey could in fact get another job as a school resource officer despite having a criminal history. And family, that says all you gotta know about modern day policing. And we can see the history of this officer. So back in 1996, Officer Tutsey and 3 other IPD officers were arrested and charged with felonies for what was dubbed the IPD brawl. So basically, these off-duty officers got drunk and they had a confrontation with civilians. And those witnesses, they said that Paul Tutsey and some of the officers were shouting some things that were sexist and racist in nature. So that was interesting. And so the first trial resulted in a hung jury. And in 98, the officer who was Tutsey resigned from the IPD and pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct. And so the plea deal meant 3 additional charges, including felony battery and perjury, but they were dismissed. So that shows you this guy's been getting, basically special treatment all around. And so that same year, Claremont Police gave Tutsey a second chance as a reserve officer, right? And so this guy left that department and he had no problems there, allegedly, but he became a school resource officer and he repeated some of the same behavior that he did in the past. So I find that interesting. Don't you, family?